Okay, I'm here with Yitzhak Karam, and professor of Jewish Studies, professor of Sephardic life and Jewish law, and wanted to talk to you first about your role in Israel with Holocaust survivors and Holocaust reparations, and what exactly is your role in Israel in this regard?
Well, in general life, I've done a lot of things just by coincidence. It just happened. I didn't plan these things. The only thing I planned in my life was to make Aliyah. And beside that, everything sort of just happened. I take seriously what I do. I'm already middle-aged. I've seen a lot. I was involved in the struggle to free Soviet Jewry. Even as a little young teenager, I struggled to free Syrian Jewry. In Israel, I was involved in the peace movement. I also was involved in a lot of topics connected to Yemenite Jews. The kidnapping of Yemenite Jews and other Jewish immigrants to Israel between 1949 and 1956. A lot of these things, people came to me because I have a reputation. I'm known. I'm a researcher, and I've done a lot of things. And when I see something is immorally objectionable, I take it seriously. And when history isn't just something I write about. I do a lot of things because I see a lot of injustices. And when I know the people, and when I've seen the people, and when I've heard the people, it bothers me. It bothers me as a person, it bothers me as a Jew, it bothers me as a religious Jew. What we're going to talk about today, there's a lot of severe issues. So going on, I've dealt a lot with Iranian Jewry. The first time I visited Iran was in 1976. I led the struggle to free the 13 Jews in Shiraz, Iran, who were in prison from 1997 to 2001. I wrote a book about it. I found out that they were imprisoned an hour and a half after it happened. It took me 3 weeks. No one believed me. Yitzhak Shamir didn't believe me. Bibi didn't believe me. Bibi meaning Israeli past and upcoming Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And I've dealt with Holocaust reparations. As a scholar on the Jews of Greece and the Sfaradim and the Eastern Jews, they also have a Holocaust story. In many cases they weren't annihilated in masses, but in some cases they were, and that ruined the heart of the Sephardic world. And I can ascertain today that the majority of the Sfaradim who survived the Holocaust did not receive reparations, and they've already died. They're totally delegitimized by the Jewish world. The majority, about a fourth of the Mengele survivors, in other words, people like women who had cancer implanted in their uteri, or men who were castrated. The German government played with these people. The Jewish world played with these people. You had a man in Los Angeles, a Sri Lankan Jew, who was castrated. He was divorced twice. He was treated like a rag by the Jewish people. He didn't receive Holocaust reparation. This is how I got into all of this stuff. Personally, maybe I only succeeded to get 100 reparations for 100 Sfaradim who wouldn't have got it otherwise because I pushed. But what any one person does makes a big influence. In Los Angeles, there's a woman named Zane Busby who feeds essentially 7 old Jews, many are Holocaust survivors in 7 countries in Eastern Europe, because the Jewish world has become corrupt. because the Claims Conference neglects these people, because the Claims Conference is determined by all sorts of questionable criterion that these people aren't survivors, that they don't deserve it. The Joint has ignored most of these survivors. And it's only by accident that this woman who cares has taken it upon herself. And so, as I've seen more and more, I sit by passively less and less. So I've been, in the last few years, on an ad hoc. It's not a official Knesset committee of Knesset members exclusively. It's a public committee at the Knesset with survivors and with Israeli parliamentarians to try to attempt to get reparations for those that can be helped. The system is absolutely abominable. And the problem is that Israel didn't want to touch the issue of reparations since the beginning, since 1953. In other words, Ben-Gurion had negotiations with Adenauer, the German premier, but he said, Ben-Gurion said, this issue is too volatile, too ugly. We're going to have the reparations distribution given abroad and decided abroad. So what, in the beginning, it was based in Europe through Nachum Goldman, who was the head of the World Jewish Congress, and he had a lot of other hats. And essentially, it established itself in New York City. Now, this isn't an organization of a few technocrats deciding who will get reparations. It represents most of the major Jewish organizations in the world, and it's a questionable partnership with the Israeli government. But the main players behind the scenes in New York are the 23 major Jewish organizations. Okay, so if there's corruption or massive corruption, there's been massive corruption for dozens of years by the Claims Conference. It's not only the people who work in the Claims Conference, it's the World Jewish Congress, it's even organizations like Pioneer Women, B'nai B'rith, Hadassah, okay, and the Orthodox organizations, and the Reform movement today, and the Conservative movement. And this is the issue. And last summer, between 30 and 40 Israeli Holocaust survivors were dying a day of neglect, of starvation, of neglect medically, and this is the crime. And what we see in Madoff is just a continuation of the base morality which we have today. There are bright points, but evading this issue is evading the cancer which exists now in a lot of the Jewish people, a lot of the organizational life, and it's only going to get worse, and as time goes on, it's going to go on and on. American Jewry is totally disconnected with what goes on, totally out of touch, totally ignorant. I even wanted to meet Rob Eshman, the leader of the editor of the Jewish Journal, and we made an appointment, and conveniently he didn't show up. I don't know where he was, but he had an assistant. No, in other words, from what I've read, this boy needs a brush up, okay? And essentially he screwed me over. It didn't matter. But the point is, he didn't get the message. He's not going to get the message, okay? He's continuing the establishment line. He's continuing the Federation line. The Federation, for years and years and years, has not given funds, have not given funds for Jewish education, have not given funds for things that need to be subsidized. Starting in the Yom Kippur War, there was a big hoax in New York City where the money collected for the Israel Emergency Fund never went there. All right? Jewish people, this is what we have to work on. All right? And the Claims Conference is just symptomatic of the neglect and the corruption. And those who are closest to the Claims Conference get the money, and those who have no connections are let out in the dark. Unfortunately, in Israel today, We have 250,000 survivors, which is about half the survivors